Hello everyone and welcome to our masterclass today on getting started with N-Central APIs. Before I go any further, I just want to make sure that you can both see my screen and hear me loud and clear. So maybe if someone can acknowledge that through the questions pane. I can see thumbs up coming in through here, so we'll take that as a go. Welcome everyone, my name is Paul Kelly. Before we get started, this content may contain some forward-looking statements regarding future product plans, development efforts. It probably won't, but it just, unless it comes up via questions. But in case we do talk about roadmap features today, there's no commitment by being able to deliver on any of these features within any certain timeframes as well. Some general housekeeping, guys. All attendees are muted. Please use the questions pane to ask questions at any time. And let me know if you're having any audio or visual issues as well. The easiest way to do that, guys, is just to start shouting in the questions pane of GoToWebinar. These sessions are recorded, and what usually happens after a masterclass is we will send them out to all the participants that registered for that particular masterclass as well. So I know we have a question already in the questions pane about the recording being sent to us. Typically, it's 1 to 2 weeks after the session is when we send out the information to those in attendance and those that were unable to make it. So anyone that was registered for this particular event as well. Alrighty. So guys, if you don't know who I am, my name is Paul Kelly. I'm a head nerd here at Enable. I've been with Enable now for coming up on 10 years. My 10-year anniversary will be in just a couple of weeks' time. Prior to working at Enable, I worked for 2 different MSPs in Cork and Ireland, where I'm located, for the previous, I suppose, 16 years before I joined Enable. So in the industry now over 25 years. My role in the Head Nerds tends to focus a lot around the N-Central application with a view on automation, scripting, patch management. But like all the Head Nerds, we try and diversify as much as possible, keep our fingers in all the pies and what's going on within the industry as well. I say this every time I talk to partners, whether it's in person or via the webinar. My virtual door is always open, guys. So feel free if you have any questions about the content today or just questions in general that you need assistance with, you can email me at paul.kelly@n-able.com. Alternatively, if you just want to keep up to speed, see what I'm up to, see what events I'm attending, what webinars and bootcamps I'm hosting, what blogs I've written, generally what's going on within Enable and the Head Nerds itself, make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll find me at Head Nerd Paul, or if you search up Paul Kelly Enable, I'm sure I'll pop up there for you as well. Now, before we get into the content today, I just want to run a few QR codes by you. So either get ready to grab a screenshot or grab your phones to hand and take a few snaps here. First of all, we'd love for you to share your insights on Enable N-Central. If you scan the following QR code and leave a review on G2 website, you will receive an Amazon gift card to the value of $25 US. If you miss any of these QR codes for whatever reason, guys, please let me know and I'll be happy to bring them up for you again at the end of the session today as well. Also, guys, as part of the Head Nerds, what we do is we produce a blog. Each one of us tries to produce at least one new blog each month, and each month we will send a newsletter out with all those blogs combined into one handy, easy to access little newsletter for you. Now, if you scan a QR code on screen here and you leave your name and email address, you will be added to the mailing list. I can assure you that this list is not shared with sales. This is not shared with marketing. This list is solely in the possession of our manager responsible for publishing and sending out these blogs as such as well. So if you haven't already joined the 750 plus people registered, now is a good time to do so, guys. I strongly recommend it. You make sure you get all that great content that we spend hours, if not days, putting together for you, delivered directly to your inbox. You never have to go looking for it again. I'm really pushing, guys, to get that number up over 800. So if you haven't already signed up for this, guys, please do so now as well. And one last QR code, second to last QR code. If you maybe are newer to Enable and maybe newer to N-Central, and you haven't attended the N-Central office hours, or you weren't familiar with the N-Central office hours, I host these once a month. Typically, it's the first Tuesday of each month. And each month I'm joined by a different product manager or a important figure within the Enable team to discuss different topics. This is an opportunity for you to engage directly with the people that obviously design and implement these products as such, and allows you to obviously have your say on how things are moving forward as well. This or next month, which is going to be next Tuesday, I'm going to be joined by Arthur Hanlon, who is one of our product managers responsible for the new assets view and what features are coming there. And I'm also going to be joined by a couple of members of the UX team who do UX research and what their role is in the organization and how working with them can help you and help us as well. So if you haven't registered for that already, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to enable.com/events and you'll see the link to register there as well. One last QR code. So before we get into it, guys, we are just past our annual conference in Berlin, which happened in April. It's hard to believe it's already at the end of May. I don't know where the time is going this year, but we're already looking ahead to Empower 2026, which will be held in the brand new Omni Resort in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, from the 13th to the 15th of April in 2026. If you are interested in going and you want to avail of an early bird offer, you can scan the QR code on screen here to get your pass for $299. That will include full access to the event, and you'll be fed and looked after for the days as well. So again, guys, if you are a regular attendee of Empower, good opportunity to get in early now. If you have never attended Empower before, I strongly recommend you look at going next year. It's such an insightful conference. Talk to anyone within the Enable community, other customers, other people on the forums or Slack channels. I don't think you'll hear a dissenting word against N-Central or Empower as such. It's such a valuable use of your time, and you get so much out of it as well. So if you haven't gone before, guys, now is the time to avail of an early bird offer as well. All right. That's the promos out of the way, guys. Let's get down to business. Let's first of all start off with some API basics. So APIs, I suppose, for anyone that isn't familiar with them, can be daunting, or the thought of them can be daunting as such, but we probably use them a lot more than we actually think on a day-to-day basis as such. So basically what an API is it allows communication of information between different software applications. So if you open up your phone and you look at the weather app, for example, there's an API calls from the weather app to the weather service to get the latest information. It's not the app that's providing the information. They're using API calls to pull that information through as such. Now, there are different API services out there. That's why when you look at different apps, sometimes the weather is different, but sometimes the weather is exactly the same because they're utilizing the same weather services to pull that information in via APIs. When you use an app like PayPal, for example, or Revolut to send money, we're making API calls through the bank to send this money through. Or if you use something like, Find My Phone on an iPhone or iPad, for example, the API calls are using GPS locators to identify where these devices are as such. So while you mightn't actually knowingly using APIs on a day-to-day basis, pretty much every aspect of our life uses APIs in some form or another as well. Now, when it comes to N-Central APIs, we're going to look at the N-Central REST APIs today. Now, it's also worth noting that N-Central also supports SOAP APIs. If you want more information on how to leverage N-Central SOAP APIs, you can check out the Leveraging APIs in N-Central Bootcamp, which is available in Enable U, or you will find it also in the Enable U YouTube channel as well. So today, as I said, we're going to focus on the REST APIs, which were added to N-Central since 2023.9 and have evolved in every release subsequently to that as well. So what is a REST API? Well, for starters, REST stands for Representational State Transfer, and the API stands for Application Programming Interface. We don't need to know this, but sometimes people ask this question as such. And basically what it is, more importantly, what is a REST API as opposed to what it stands for? It's an architectural style for designing networked applications. REST enables communication between different software systems over the internet by using standard HTTP methods. So whether that's a get, post, pull, or delete. And REST's APIs are widely used for creating web services that can be easily consumed by various different clients as well. When it comes to what type of account you should use in N-central for a REST API, the simple answer is an API-only user account. Now, I'm going to demo that and how to create one of those to you shortly, but when you are creating these accounts, it's important that you disable MFA on the account because MFA is not supported for APIs. So if you have MFA enabled, the account won't grant you access as such. It's also important that you name the account clearly so that we can clearly find that it is an API account as well. So maybe there is a certain level of permissions assigned to this API account. When we know it's an API account, we know that it's there for a particular reason. So if we're doing maintenance or housekeeping, we're not removing API accounts that are used for certain integrations as well. When possible, give it the least amount of privileges required for what you intended to do. So for the purposes of the demonstration today, I'll probably just choose one of the predefined roles within N-central as such. But if you are creating an API-only user account for a specific action, look to get as granular with the actual permissions that account has so that it only needs what it actually needs to do, the actual actions you're setting up for as well. So to give you an idea, I've looked at creating API-only user accounts to deploy the agent in the past, for example. I managed to get that down to about 3 permissions out of the extensive list that are available as such. So you can get very granular and restrictive with what's required as well. And obviously generate a JSON web token and use that rather than regular authentication for added security as well. And the benefit of using the JSON web token over, let's say, the username and password that you create on the API-only user account is if you have password cycling policies in place in your N-central server, every time the password expires, you will have to create a new password in those scripts if you're using username and password as such. Whereas if you are using a JSON web token, you will still need to reset the password on the account, but the actual JSON web token remains the same. So you don't need to update anything in the software integrations or the scripts that you're using as well. A couple of late people joining here or so. Sean says, can you set the API user not to expire for password? You can, in theory, Sean, if you have your own instance of N-central, you can obviously set the password policies not to expire, but that would apply then to all accounts and not just API only user specific accounts as such. That's all or nothing. We wouldn't recommend that from the security perspective. Robbie says, when are the SOAP APIs being retired? We use to pull detailed information from assets from N-central. So, Robbie, there's no plan to remove the SOAP APIs for now. The initial target for the REST APIs was to obviously give parity with the SOAP APIs. I think there's 1 or 2 that are still on the to-do list, but there is no immediate plans to retire the SOAP APIs. They will continue to be available to you, but in terms of developing new APIs, you're more likely to see that on a REST perspective than obviously new SOAP APIs being developed as well. I'm going to switch these accounts around so I know which one is oldest, which is newest first. Okay, so let's next talk about what we can do with these APIs. And currently, as of N-central 2025.2, there are 16 resource groups and 70 sub-resources or functions. People have different names for them as such, but I like to call them functions, but we'll call them sub-resources as well. So, for example, these resource groups include things like active issues, obviously, where we can retrieve active issues from a customer site. We have custom properties, obviously, where we retrieve and update custom properties. And these can both be associated with organizational units or devices as well. Something like the device tasks, for example, this allows you to get a list of tasks associated with a specific task ID. For example, in this scenario, the get method returns customer information such as task IDs, task names, task status for a device. You have job status, retrieves a list of job statuses for a given organizational unit. And by organization unit, we mean kind of customer or SO, depending on how we actually get the information as such. Maintenance windows obviously allows you to retrieve information in maintenance windows, add information in maintenance windows, as well as deleting maintenance windows as well. So this was a request that many partners had around patch management maintenance windows and the ability to manage them through the APIs. That was recently added as well. We have the organizational units. This allows you to get a list of all the SOs, customers, or sites with relevant data about each target. You also have the ability to target specific locations within your organization here as well. You have registration tokens. These include getting registration tokens for customer sites. This is important when it comes to scripting the deployment of an central agent, for example. And you have user roles as well, where you retrieve and add user roles or a list of users in here also as well. So this is just a summary of the resources currently available within your N-Central environment. It's important to note that these features are updated regularly, and as we add new versions of N-Central, for example, we intend to incorporate new REST API function calls as well. So the current release of N-Central is 2025.2. There is a minor release that's just gone out as well. That one, for example, there was no REST functions added in that. But if you are running 24.6 or older, for example, you may find that some of the resources that we touch on today or you see within the demos are not currently available until you upgrade your environment as well. So next, we're going to talk about Swagger. And what is Swagger, I hear you cry? Swagger is an open source framework that allows developers to design, document, and consume REST APIs. It provides a set of tools to create interactive documentation for APIs, making it easier for developers to understand how to use and interact with the API endpoints as well. So you'll find now when you access APIs through different vendors that the Swagger interface is becoming more and more common. So we use it obviously in N-Central. I know Fortinet use it, for example, within their FortiGate environments. I know DNS Filter use it as their API as well. So more and more you're seeing this Swagger interface such. And the good thing about having this open source documentation available for you is if you know how to work with the N-Central APIs, then you'll be able to know how to work with other APIs that leverage Swagger as well. So Swagger simplifies API deployment by facilitating the creation of comprehensive, well-structured, and easily understandable API documentation. So what we're going to do first of all, guys, is we're going to jump into our N-Central environment and we're going to create a API-only user account. And then we're actually going to use that user account to authenticate with the Swagger interface as such so that we can start making API queries and calls as well. So I'm going to jump into my N-Central environment. And we're going to come down here to our configuration. We're going to go to, not go to configuration, we're going to go to administration. We're going to go to user management and users, and we're going to create a new user as such. So I'm going to use good naming convention here. So I'll call this MC. So I know it's a master class and I know to delete it afterwards. And I'll call this API. And then I can put in a login name. Now the login name needs to match the format required, which in this case is an email address. But it doesn't, you're not going to use it as such. So it doesn't technically have to be a valid email address. So we just use it in that format. So we'll do enable.com. The password obviously needs to match the password criteria. So we're going to pop in the criteria here. Again, we're not going to use this as such. didn't meet the criteria. There we go, special character. And then we need to assign the roles. So this is where you can get granular. So here you can see that the lockdown user role that I had for an agent reinstall. But I'm just going to choose the default administrator role here as such. I then also need to control what devices or users or customers have access to. Again, you could get granular here if you're creating an API user for a specific customer, for example. We're just going to choose all our customers as well. Under our user details tab and in user information, this is where we need to set MFA to be not retired. And finally, under API access, we're going to click on API only user account, and we're going to go ahead and save that as such. So we've now created our user. We now want to obviously, we want to create a JSON web token for that user account. So we're going to click back into it. We're going to click on access in here, and we're going to click on generate JSON web token. We're going to copy this token down because after I click on OK, we're never going to see this again. And this is something that you want to document within your password management tool as such. Now, obviously, if you lose this JSON web token, you can obviously go in here again and regenerate it as such, but anything using that existing token would have to be updated with the new token as well. So now that we have our user account created, the next thing we're going to do is access our Swagger interface, and we can do that by clicking on the My Links tab in your enable left-hand navigation panel and click on API Explorer. And this is going to basically open up the web page of your N-Central URL /API-Explorer as such. So here we can see the Swagger interface. What we're initially interested in doing is authorizing ourselves within the Swagger interface, but we can also see all the different function groups we've specified or we talked about earlier. We can click on these function groups to see the individual function calls or resources underneath each one as well. And if we scroll down here, we have detailed schema of all these ones as well. So if we want to learn more about the active issues or the action, for example, you can see detailed information in here as well. So what we're going to do is click on authorize. We're going to paste our JSON web token in here. We're going to click on authorize and we're going to click on close. So we need to actually have a bearer token in here to complete the authorization. So it's a two-step exchange, really. We get our JSON web token. We then use that to create a bearer token, which we then input to actually authenticate against the APIs. So what we're going to do is come down to authentication. We're going to click on our post authentication. We'll click on try it out, and we'll simply click on execute. Now we can see it's executed successfully because we see it's code to 100, and we can see the response codes are detailed here. So authentication is successful. And then we're going to grab the token here in order to complete our authentication. Scroll right back up to the authorize button. Go ahead and click in there and click on authorize. And now we're good to go as such. So we're now authenticated into our N-Central server via the APIs, and we're ready to use Swagger to start pulling information out of the REST APIs as well. So the next thing we're going to look at, since we've been authenticated, is we're actually going to look at some using the API to actually get information. Now, the API Explorer really is a way for you to understand the APIs and what information is available to you. And it makes it a lot easier then to actually build this into third-party integrations or into scripts to extract information and such. So while we're going to look and work within the API Explorer, it's really just a way of validating that the commands that we're using are correct and pulling the correct information for us as well. So to understand, I suppose, how the N-Central API works and what the calls look like, for example, here we have a sample call from our Swagger interface. The get method, obviously, is the HT method that we're using. You'll also see put, post, delete, and patch as alternative methods, and they're all color coordinated accordingly. If you want to learn more about what each one does, conveniently enough, I've written a blog about it. So if you go to the Head Nerds page and enable and click on my name and click on blogs, you'll find my Swagger guide on which each one does. We then have the pat, which is the API. the devices, which is the resource groups, that is one of our 16 categories, and the scheduled task, which is the sub-resource that we're running in here. And in this particular case, this also requires a specific ID to get this information as such as well. So that is something that we will need to input as an input parameter into our script or into our API call when we're running it as well. Now, when using N-Central APIs, you may require additional information. So here are some useful tips, obviously, for accessing that information such. So the last call that we looked at, for example, required a device ID. Now, if you click from the All Devices screen, or if you hover over a device from the All Devices screen, you will see a URL preview in the bottom left-hand corner. So if I click back into N-Central here, I click on my All Devices and I hover over a device, we can see in the bottom left-hand corner, the device ID appears here as such as well. The device ID is very different to the application ID. So if you click on your settings tab in here and you click on your local agent, you will see an application ID. This is not the same as the device ID as such. So don't mix up the two as well. It's the device ID that we use within the API to get information on devices as such as well. You also have the customer ID. That is accessed via going to administration customers, and the customer ID is basically the access code. So, if we were doing a good job, we'd obviously name everything accordingly. But again, under administration customers, for example, I can see the access code here. This is what we mean by the customer ID. If we drop down from the customer or the service organization level to a customer level and we click into our sites, we see the individual site IDs in here as well. The SO ID. So if you, and this should be SO, not SQ. A little typo there. So if you're unhosted, you should obviously create the API only user account at the SO level. And then the default value for the SO ID is 50. If you have self-hosted or on-premise version of N-Central, basically you don't have an N-Central URL which says n-enable.com. The SO ID is always going to be 100 there as well. If you need to get some role IDs under administration roles, again, you can hover over that. Again, in task IDs, again, similar scenario, hover over the device details and get the task name, or in job status, hover over the job name and you'll view the URL preview as well. So usually an old hover tells you the information you're looking for as well. Now, in terms of using the N-Central APIs, it's good to be aware of some Swagger limits and best practices. So rate limiting happens will limit the number of responses to manage stability, availability, and performance. And if it's reached, so if you over push a server, for example, it usually throw up an error of 429, and that just means there's too many requests within the environment as such. We also have pagination. So some queries yield extremely high numbers of results. So pagination is enabled by default. So the default number of results per page is 50, and the default responses start at page 1. There are switches you can put in place, though, to retrieve all the actual results in here as well. So we'll look at that as we go through some demos as well today. In terms of some useful response codes, most of these are documented within the Swagger UI. We already saw 200 indicated successful authentication. 401 obviously is authentication failure. 404 is not found. So if you're maybe trying to run something that is not on your version of N-Central, for example, you might find that. And then 429, as we mentioned, also is just a rate limiting kicking play in if you obviously are overstretching the amount of calls onto the APIs as well. So we're going to jump into the UI again, but before we do so, we'll have some questions here. Sean asks, any plans to include calls for reports or metrics? So it is possible, Sean, to get metrics out of a service today. You have to kind of go through a couple of steps where you get information on the device, and then you can actually pull metrics on the individual services that you're looking for. So that is possible at the moment. They're also looking at building more APIs around the reporting. Obviously, we also have analytics, which is available to you as well. And you can do what's known as direct data access in there to pull information directly from the Snowflake database where that information is stored as well. Alec, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is there a roadmap for new API functions and resource data we'll have access to in the future as such? So there is not anything specific on the roadmap right now. Obviously, if you are following along to the central roadmap, you might have saw things around vulnerability management, for example, and they're looking to introduce API calls for that as well. So there will be more added in time. There's a few different projects going on at the moment, which has paused the development of a few others. So if we're not kind of releasing it in this quarter or Q3, we don't tend to publicize it as such as well. That's a limitation of being a publicly limited company, unfortunately. So nothing immediate beyond what's available in 25.2 at the moment, but we will continue to develop these moving forward as we add and enhance the features as well. Corey said he created his MC API user but missed the authentication step because they're too quick. Or am I too slow? Corey, don't worry about it. We'll go through the session today. This is not so much a kind of follow along, but then maybe a sit and listen as such. And you can at the end of it, then there's resources and videos that you can utilize to review these as well. Andrew says, are there APIs available in the assets space? Like currently, nothing to do with the new assets to there, Andrew, as such, but there is another project going on with GraphQL APIs for the Ecoverse visions as well, built on top of REST APIs as such. So they're not publicly available something at the moment, but they are something the team are working on as well. Ryan says, is there a way to pull unique identifiers to match systems to the S1 ops panel? For instance, systems that are named differently in S1 via and central, is there a unique identifier that can be quickly queried via APIs? I suppose if you're using the enhanced DDR integration, Ryan, then the devices should be tied together as such. If you're using standalone Central 1 and integrate and then pulling information from in Central, I'm not sure what would be in Central 1 that would tie the device back to in Central if the names are different, for example. But it's possible that there's certain information. So you can look at the device details API call and see if there's any information there that you might might be able to tie that back to your instance in Central 1 as well. Alrighty. So let's obviously take a look at the Swagger interface now that we're authenticated against it. And let's see, can we pull some information from the APIs itself? So we're going to jump back into our API Explorer. We're going to come down here, first of all, maybe to our customers, our organizational units. So it was customers in the first iteration, and we changed it to organizational units shortly after that. Here you can see a combination of blue, which are get, which are pulling information via the APIs, and green, which are post, which are actually pushing information in via the APIs. This allows us to create new things. So if we want to create a customer, create a site, create a service organization, they're the API calls that we're going to look to leverage in here as well. If I want to get a list of my customers, for example, we can come down here and we can go to our customers. We can click on try it out and we can execute that, and we're already authenticated. So we get a response of 200 and we can see it reveals our customer information. So we got Take Control Dev Team, Marky Mark's Flying Circus, Celtic Cider, for example. You also have the possibility here of sorting these queries in order as well. So if you want to use some of these input parameters, they are case sensitive. So if we want to sort by customer name, so we'll just grab the customer name out here. I would pop that into sort by, and then we'll choose to run that up ascending. And then we can execute this now again. And now you can see that we have Cybersecurity Lab, we have FM Tray Research. Now we're displaying the information in alphabetical order as such. This information can be exported to a JSON payload, for example, if you want to do that, or alternatively, if you just want to download the thing completely, you can do that as well. And then if we open up Notepad, for example, we go ahead and we can dump that into our Notepad. So if we want to search through something quickly as well, and just drag this over here, we can pop that in here and we can see all the information that we've exported as well. Next, we're going to take a look at the devices call. So we're going to pop up to our devices call here. And again, here you can see a few other calls that are available to us as such. So here we have the ability to put as well as patch. So whereas post creates something new, put allows us to modify something that's already in existence. And also patch allows us to modify some of the information within that also as well. So in this particular case, we use the lifecycle info to get information around the warranty status, for example, and the purchase date. And these two calls allow third-party products like ScalePad's Lifecycle Manager to actually update the warranty information within your End Central environments as well. We're going to look at the devices call here as such, though. And again, we're going to click on Try It Out, or we're going to choose to execute this as well. So right now, we get all the information on all the devices that we have in our End Central instance. And I scroll right down to the bottom, I can actually see here that while the item count is only 50, there's actually 57 items in total. So I'm actually missing a couple of devices from my list. So what I need to do is I need to come up here to my page size, and I'm going to set this to -1. And that means that we're not going to limit to 50 results. We're going to report on everything as such. Now, the nice thing about this is when you're using this, obviously, if you need to understand what the correct CURL is that you're going to use within your application, right now we see what call is being currently used in here in the request URL. If I use a -1 and execute this now, you can see that request URL actually changes, and it includes the question mark page size equals to -1. And if we look on our call here again, and we scroll down to the bottom again this time, you can see the item count now matches the total items found as well. Now, obviously, putting all the information when it's not needed isn't a great idea as such. So you can also use the select functionality within these API calls as well. And this allows you to have far more granular control of what's going on within the environment as well. So we ran this webinar a month ago. And if you joined us a month ago, you're probably hearing the same information again. But one of the things that came up on the webinar was where we find the select help. So it's all documented now within the developer portal, which we're going to touch on later on as well. But this makes it a lot easier to just get the information that you're looking for specifically out of the API calls as well. So in this particular case, I'm going to use the long name, and I'm going to say the long name equals to. And the key here when you're using the select feature is that you use 2 equals 2. And then I'm going to put in P Kelly -LT4. Now it is case sensitive. So if I were to put in lowercase and this displays in uppercase, I'm not going to get this information. And if I go ahead and execute this now, we can see that we have a success code of 200. It's got the information I'm looking for, which is just this particular device. And we can see that the item count is 1, obviously, because there's only one device that contains P. Kelly. And then we can say the total page is 57 here as well. So here you can start to see then of what this query would look like. So rather than just being get devices, we have a page size of -1, which technically we don't need, but we also have the select item in here. And this allows you to obviously test this within the Swagger UI, first of all, before obviously you go to implement it within your environments as well. So next, we're going to look at using the API Explorer to actually run a task within N-central. So when we introduced these new REST APIs, we wanted to give you some functionality that you didn't already have with the existing SOAP APIs as such. So in order to run a scheduled task via the API, you will need several pieces of information. You're going to need the item ID of the task that you want to run. You need to know whether the task is a script, so whether it's a PowerShell script or an automation policy. You'll need the customer ID and you'll need the device ID as well. And you'll also need to ensure that the actual script that you want to run has been enabled to actually run via the API as such. So not every automation policy in N-central is turned on by default. You're going to need to ensure that the ones that you want to run via the API are enabled as well. So we're going to jump back into N-central, and we're going to look under configuration. We're going to go schedule tasks, and we're going to go to scripts and software repository. And in here, you will see what tasks have already been enabled for API and the repository ID as well. We're going to look at something like UAC status. So we'll go ahead and come in here. I've already enabled this as such, but because this is a system level script, which I don't have access to, I can't toggle this on or off. But what I was able to do is I could come across here. I could clone this. This obviously created my SO version of the same script. And then I enabled it using the API toggle. So I choose disable, we choose enable or make it runnable. And this is the repository item ID that we're looking for in order to run. So in order to obviously execute a task via the API, it needs to be set to enabled, and you need to have the repository ID as well. So what we're going to do is come into our scheduled our scripts and software repository, and we're going to go to our collapse view menus here. We're going to go to our scheduled tasks, and we're going to choose to create a scheduled task. Here you can see a sample of the information that's required. So it needs a unique name, it needs a task ID, the type of task, whether it's an automation policy or a script. So in N-central, if it's got these little green and blue cogs, it's an automation policy. If it's got the Windows logo, it's a script. Again, this is case sensitive, so it's important information. You need the device ID, which we got earlier on when we got my device information in here as such. So this is the device ID that I'm looking for. We also need the customer ID or the org unit ID, which is you can see listed in here as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll try this out. We'll give this a name. So we'll call this masterclass UAC status. The item ID that we want to run is this little guy here. So we'll copy this guy across here and paste that in. The task type is an automation policy, so we will remove script. And this is case sensitive, so it's automation with a capital A, policy with a capital P, all one word. The customer ID, as we saw above, is 133, and we'll just grab the device ID while we're at it as well. So go ahead, grab that guy. So we'll pop in 133 here. We'll pop in our device ID. Now, if we had parameters that the script needed to run, this typically applies to PowerShell scripts, for example. We can include them in here as well. But as we don't, we can just remove that information, and we can go ahead now and execute this call. So we get an execution, we get a code 201, and we can see that it's created a task ID as such. Now, if we pop back into our N-central environment and click on add and delete tasks, we can see under our direct support tasks, the PKUAC status has already run on the machine. And sorry, that was last month. The masterclass UAC status is currently in progress. And we can see now it's actually completed as well. So it triggers incredibly fast via the API call itself. We can click into it and we can see UAC is enabled as such. You can also query this then via the additional calls in here as well. So if you want to get more information on the task ID, you can go ahead, you can try this out and pop that information in here also. And you can see the information that is returned into the script as well. So next, we're going to look at how you can maybe start to leverage REST APIs using something like PowerShell or some other scripting engine that you want to utilize as well. So we're going to go ahead this time around and we're going to jump into PowerShell ISE. I've already opened up a little script here. The first thing we obviously need to do is when we're using PowerShell, we're authenticated through the APIs via the Swagger interface, but we're not obviously done via PowerShell as such. So this is a script that you can get off the developer portal, which basically does an exchange of tokens. You obviously get your N-Central URL here, you get your JSON web token, and this is going to send that information into the API, get the bearer token, and then use the bearer token to authenticate as such. So you need to run this anytime you run any script. So this is usually kind of the baseline for any script that you want to have as well. So it goes ahead, runs, and it authenticates. The next thing we need to do then is decide on what we want to do. So we might want to, and I have a whole booklet of scripts here, we might want to export custom properties for multiple devices, for example. So we can go across and load this up. In this particular example, I have the customer ID and the N-Central device ID. These are the input parameters that we need to define in here as such. And then we're using PowerShell to build little functions around each of the API calls. So we have an API call for N-Central customers. We have an API call for the devices within those customers. We then have an API call to get the devices by the customer ID. And then we have an API call to get the devices by the custom properties as well. And we combine all this information into a table. This is obviously where generative AI comes very useful as such. And we can export that to a local CSV file, or we can display it on screen as well. So if I go ahead and execute that now, we can see it should show us all the devices with the custom property that we're looking for. In this case, it is the device ID. But if I just want to see this for one particular customer, for example, I can change the customer ID here, maybe to Celtic Cider Company, run that again, and it will only show me the information that I'm looking for as well. So using PowerShell scripts is a really good way of obviously starting to combine calls together as such. So in Swagger, we've obviously we use the interface to run one call, check to see, verify it works. We then maybe take some information from that and run another call and check the information from that and run another call. By using something like PowerShell, for example, we're starting to combine all these calls together to really pull out meaningful information from your N-Central instance as well. So the last thing we're going to touch on today, guys, is the developer portal. And this is what makes it even easier for you to work with the N-Central APIs, particularly if you've been very limited to exposure to APIs or N-Central APIs in the past. This is going to guide you along the way with all the information you need as well. The developer portal is now available to all partners at no additional charge. You'll just simply go to developer.n-able.com. You will have information in N-Central, Cove, Take Control, and Insight. Probably shouldn't be any Insight partners on the call here as such. But if you are, you'll find information around the APIs in there as well. In terms of what's available currently within the developer portal, you'll find kind of getting started guides on how to use the different APIs. You'll find API references, so you can see all the APIs that are available under the different products. There are kind of step-by-step guides on how to use this, and you'll also find recipes or scripts available that will help this. These are predefined scripts like that exchange or bearer token that we looked at earlier on, or some of these export scripts are available as baselines for you to work off as well. There's also a change log in there, so as new features are added, we usually update the change log so you can see what's new in the developer portal since you last used it as well. So we're going to jump into our web browser again, and this time we're going to go to developer.n-able.com, and in here we're going to click on our N-Central RMM. And here you can see all the getting started information about using N-Central APIs. This is where you'll find help by using select tools, all that type of information. That goodness is in here as well. If you click on the API reference guide, Here you can see a list of all the APIs currently available. Now, this doesn't take into version information as such, so you may see API calls here that are not on your instance of N-Central. So if you're not running the latest version of N-Central, there may be items listed here that you cannot currently run within your environment as well. But the nice thing about this is they actually have a little interface where you can actually work with, and you can obviously try to get more information. So rather than using Swagger, you can use this as an alternative to test some of these API functions as well. So I can come in here and pop in Nerds Training, for example. I can go ahead and try it out. I need a JSON web token. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop that up there. So I'll go and grab my JSON web token that I have copied. And I'll pop that in here as well. And now we can go ahead and try it out, and we can see that we are not authenticated. Maybe I think the actual token has expired. I need to get a new one, and I'll pop back into my users, and we'll just find our MC. And we'll go and generate a new one, copy token back into our previewer. We'll go ahead and paste that in there. We'll try it out again. I don't know what's going on here as such. I must have a typo somewhere along the line as well. But you can obviously use this to authenticate. Maybe I'm on the wrong call. Sorry, I should be on the authentication call. Yeah, man, that there. Pop this in here. Try it out. There we go. So we have authenticated, and we can now copy the token. So when it comes to obviously doing something like get devices, for example, we can again go and try this out and authenticate in here. I need to put my bearer token in here. So again, we will paste that in here as such, try that out, and we can see, again, I'm not sure what's going on in my interface. Gremlins of a live demo, but this I can assure you makes it easier to work with the API as well. Here obviously is the recipes tab. This is where we can start to find all the PowerShell scripts that we want to use. So I can come in here and choose N-Central REST, for example, and I can use a little pop-out button here to expand this. I can click on my recipes, and I can see all the different N-Central REST API sample scripts that are available to download. The real nice feature in here as such is I can use the generative AI within the search feature to actually create a script for me. So create a PowerShell script that exports all custom properties for a single customer defined by ID. So we go ahead there and we click on enter. Typing in plain English obviously will allow us to go ahead and search. It'll think about it for a moment, and then it should go ahead and generate the script for us as well. So here you can see the script that we've created. It has our input parameters that we need to access it, and then we can copy and test that within our environments as well. So guys, that is our N-Central REST API masterclass. What I would do as well is I know we had the call earlier on about creating the API user account. You will find videos on how to do that under the reference guide and the API reference getting started as well. So you'll find videos, or you can find them on the Enable You YouTube channels as well. So you can easily understand how to actually get started with your creation of user accounts as well. We have a few questions in the chat. Ryan, I know, just going back to the Center One issue, Ryan, what I would suggest there is reach out to your customer success manager, maybe have a call with a solutions engineer. We can see, can we figure out what's going on there as such. The devices shouldn't be different when exported from N-Central to Central One and vice versa. Sean says, any introduced to callbacks or webhooks? So not on the immediate roadmap as such, but that may be something that is added, Sean, down the line. So you said if we're syncing service in our system currently, we have to query and central on a schedule. Yeah. So potentially in the future, Sean, that may be something that they look to introduce, but it's currently not on the existing roadmap as well. Brian says, what is the difference between put and patch? I think it's down to the level of amending that's done there, Brian. I can't remember off the top of my head. I should probably know. But if we go to enable.com/blog and we search for our Swagger blog in here, blog search SWAGGER. I wrote the blog on it, so you think I'd know. But so if we go to understanding the operations in here as such, put is updating an entire resource, where patch is partially updating the resource. So that's the difference between the two. I knew it was something like that as well. Ben says the select documentation in the dev portal. Let me find out exactly where Mustafa put it, because he sent me a screenshot. So we'll go back into our dev portal and we will see, can we find try our search. And it's called selecting a subset of devices to retrieve. So if we search for selecting a subset of devices, hopefully the search feature. I don't know what's going on with our dev portal today, unless they're going through an update process right in the middle of a masterclass. There we go. So here you can see, so if we search for selecting a subset of devices to retrieve, it highlights on the select functionality. And in here, then it gives us a list of the different operators that are supported in here as well. This also gives us the idea of using things like less than or equals to, greater than, or equal to, like or unlike functions in here also as well. Are there any plans to get information from the assets tab of devices using REST APIs? Now, I presume we're referring to the new assets tab here as such. So yes, we kind of covered that. Maybe you missed it earlier on. So there are plans to obviously introduce additional API calls for the new Ecoverse features. They will be slightly different because they're located, the information is located in a slightly different location as such. But that is ongoing progress at the moment. They're not available at the moment. I think we'll build out the function first of all. We're still obviously fine-tuning the assets view as such. And then once we have the kind of assets view in kind of GA release in terms of development, then we will look at introducing API calls as well. Robbie says there a timeline on patch management reports. Doesn't appear to be an API to pull down a patching statistics. So I would be looking first of all under analytics and dashboards, and in here you have the patch compliance report as such. So if you go to by patch default, you'll see the patch compliance report here. This gives you all this information. This information is also available via what we call direct data access, Robbie. So if you are using analytics today, but you obviously need to get more information, or you want to customize the information you're pulling, then you're going to leverage direct data access to pull all the data directly using that. So I don't think kind of that's going to be top priority for an API call, because the information is already available via analytics as well. Aaron says, is there a way to create new devices installers for a customer using the API? So It's not possible at the moment. Whether that's something to add in the future, I don't think it's top of priority, Aaron. I haven't seen a lot of requests for that just yet. Because obviously with devices, creating one manually doesn't give you much information. Usually we use an agent or we use some form of query to pull information on the device as well. So I don't foresee it happening anytime soon, but obviously again, if we get enough feedback that it's a requirement, the team will look to it as well. Rob says, about paging, every page you call will return less next 10 up. Been through that, or is there another option? So I'm trying to page as less as possible. I just usually use the switch to do a -1 on the page size, and obviously then we just pull all the information out as such. I've pulled information on thousands of fields using this method as well, so I don't particularly use the page number as such, just reduce the page size so it's all one call as well. Robbie says direct data access, that's something that needs to be requested. We pull the information to power. So you can do that exactly using that method, Robbie. So if you reach out to your customer success manager, they can give you a bit more information on direct data access. There is two options available to you. So there is a 1-year option or a 7-year option in terms of data retention. Right now with the analytics in Central, the information is pulled every 24 hours. If you go down the direct data access route, the information is pulled every 4 hours as well. There is a small cost per month for having this, but your customer success manager will be able to give you information on that as well. With that, I've heard the blung of the top of the hour. So guys, I think we've covered all the questions. So I want to thank you for your time and attendance today. I hope you found this session useful. A reminder that a recording this session will be sent to you in the near future as well. The developer portal obviously is a great resource to obviously get started and learn more about the APIs. And of course, if you do have any further questions, queries, get stuck with anything, for example, I had a partner send me a script recently. It was pulling some of the information, not all the information. We worked out what it was working. We sent it back. He tested it, got 90%. And then we looked at it again. We figured out there was actually one other little page size limitation that we'd missed that caused the problem as such. So if you ever need any help like that, guys, I'm more than happy to oblige as well. A reminder, I'll be back on Tuesday with the End Central office hours. If you haven't already registered for that, you can go to enable.com/event and do so now. Hopefully we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you in a masterclass or office hours in the near future. Bye for now, guys.